Okay, this presentation is over how my copyright lesson meets the standards of the Assure model. My name is Emily Waters. The first step of the Assure model is A for Analyze Learners. So for the general characteristics of the learners in Miss Stewart's class, I decided that they were 4th graders. That's the age level my lesson is aimed for, and they are digital natives. They're used to being on the computer. There's mixed levels. There's some students with learning disabilities and struggle with learning, and there are students who are above average when it comes to their learning, so a good mix. And the school would be moderate or low socioeconomic. That's the school that I teach at, what it's like. Specific entry competencies. First, to figure out what the students specifically need help on, I would start by questioning to determine copyright background if I was doing this in real life, to determine if they have never heard of it before, if they know a little bit about it, to know exactly where I need to start, how much depth or detail I need to go into, or if it needs to be a multi-part lesson, I need to have more lessons and activities over copyright planned. So I'd use questioning at the beginning of my lesson to determine that. Students can, in this class, navigate the internet easily. They're digitally savvy, and they can also respond verbally, written, and digitally to different assignments or topics or questions. Learning differences and needs. How I would meet those learning differences. One, I would look at my grouping and try to get a good mix in the grouping of low, medium, and high levels of learning for students, so that you don't have one group that's just floundering, they don't know what to do. So the grouping can help them in discussion, and they can also work together during the assignment. Any accommodations, if I have students with IEPs, and I might have them have preferential seating by having them seated close to me, or if we have certain seating in the library that might help students, like wiggle chairs or things like that. And then also oral administration for students who need questions and things like that on the exit ticket, the assignment read aloud to them. Also, I will have a response choice at the end, meaning the students will be able to choose how they respond, how they complete the assignment, whether that's written or digitally, so they can pick one that is to their strength. State standards and objectives. So I pulled the standards from our school library standards. For this lesson, learners use valid information and reason conclusions to make ethical decisions in the creation of knowledge by ethically using and reproducing others' work, acknowledging authorship and demonstrating respect for the intellectual property of others. The objective of this lesson is that by the end of it, students will be able to, when given a created work, students will apply copyright principles to determine if the work can be used and if attribution is needed. So they'll be able to determine copyright on an item, or specifically an image that we are going to find, and then also practice giving attribution to the creator. Select strategies and resources. So for strategies, I'm looking at the teacher-centered side. The teacher-centered strategy is going to be a lecture-style copyright presentation that we prepared. And then the student-centered strategy, the students are going to be able to work in groups and complete a copyright assignment or an exit ticket before they leave to show their knowledge. Resources I would use, obviously a projector and a computer to project the copyright presentation. If I were doing this in real life, I would also probably convert my copyright presentation into a Nearpod to allow students to follow along on their own devices, respond to questions digitally, and just make it a little more interactive. So with that, I'd also want students to have one-to-one devices, whether that's iPads or Chromebooks, to be able to follow along and participate in the presentation with Nearpod. And then I also need the exit tickets, the copyright assignment the students are going to do, having my digital copy of it available, or like the digital instructions, and a paper copy if the students choose to respond through writing. Utilize resources. So using the outline in our textbook, the first step would be to preview resources. So I would make sure that my Nearpod presentation is ready to go, and make sure that the students are going to be able to have their devices. I'll make sure that they are brought into the library, just making sure that all those things are working correctly. And then I will prepare my resources by making sure my presentation is set up and working and that there's no kinks that I'm trying to figure out while the kids are sitting in there waiting for the lesson to go on. And making sure that my exit tickets are prepared and set up for students to use. The environment, I would have tables and chairs in the library is where the library is where I would deliver the lesson, having the tables and chairs set up in a way that they can easily view the screen. And also I prepare the learners by at the beginning of the lesson letting them know what the overall purpose of the lesson is, which is to focus on copyright. I'll connect it back to the upcoming project in Ms. Stewart's class, but also explain to them the importance of understanding copyright in classes in the future whenever they are creating something themselves, just connecting it to the bigger picture. And then finally I'll provide the learning experience by when the students come in and I give the lesson and they work on the assignment. Okay, require learner participation. Outside of students participating through the Nearpod that I talked about, if I were actually presenting that lesson to them, the learner participation would come through the student practice or the exit ticket I mentioned. For the exit ticket, I'm going to have them search a keyword of their choice in Wikipedia, just because Wikipedia very clearly displays copyright license. And they'll find an image and the copyright license for the image, and then complete a written or video response over that image. So they can choose, if they feel stronger writing out their thoughts, they can choose to write it and fill out the paper exit ticket, or they can follow the prompting questions and answer those in a video, specifically Flipgrid. So the things that they're going to answer, first they're going to write or explain what copyright is, so I can see if they have a basic understanding of that definition, and then specifically what kind of copyright license does the image they have looked up have, and then do they have permission to use the image based on that copyright, and then how would they attribute the image to the creator. So I could kind of walk you through what that would look like in Wikipedia if they wanted to search the keyword puppy, whatever keyword they want. Then they could click on the image. Here's a cute golden retriever puppy, and you can see down here, if I click on more details, I can see that this has a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. I can also see it right there, and it tells them very clearly they are free to share, distribute, and transmit the work. They're able to adapt the work, but they must attribute the give the appropriate credit to the creators. This very clearly shows them what the copyright license is and if they're allowed to use it in the circumstances. So then the students would be able to look at this image. They can look at the creator, the author right here. They could attribute to the author, giving their internet name there and then the date that it was found, and then also a link to the image if that is available. And then the feedback the students would get will be through the rubric that I will go over in the evaluation point. So I have my rubric right here. So I broke it up into masters, meets, and does not meet are the 3 levels. First is the definition of copyright. Are they able to thoroughly explain copyright? They can give me 1 sentence on it, or can they not explain it at all? Were they able to identify the copyright license of the image and explain what that license means? Were they just able to identify if the image is copyrighted, or were they not able to figure that out at all? Explains permission to use, so the student can explain whether or not they have permission to use that image based on the license and why. Or they are just able to state whether or not the image could be used, or they're not able to determine if they have permission to use it based on the copyright license. And then attribution. The student correctly attributes the image to the creator by the name, the date, and a link if possible. We're not going to go into detail over citation at this age in 4th grade. If they can just find the author, the date it was made, and then a link back to where they found it, that's going to be good for me. And then if they just attempted to attribute the image, they maybe didn't get it perfect, but at least they were able to show on some level what attribution looks like, or they didn't try to attribute it at all. And then lastly, the product quality. On masters for written, they'll get masters if the writing was clear and easy to read. They thoroughly answered each question, and any errors in spelling or mechanics is not distracting to understanding what they wrote. Video, the student spoke clearly into the camera. The students thoroughly answered each question, and the video is easy to understand, kind of like the same expectations on our assignments in this class. Meets is just a step below that. The writing is mostly understandable. They answered all the questions, even if they weren't thoroughly, they attempted to. And there might be some distraction due to spelling and mechanical errors that make it a little bit difficult to read. On the video, most of the time the students can be understood and all the prompts were answered. And then does not meet is if they did not complete the assignment or they can't be understood. They just really did not. It's clear that they did not understand what was going on. So that is the rubric that I'll use to give feedback to the students to help me see on what level they understood the copyright principles we went over. And then the last thing, if I were actually giving this lesson in person, I'd also want to have student feedback. This is the rubric from our textbook where the students are rating the teacher, the librarian, on how they were able to understand them, if they felt like they were involved, all those things, and that will help in creating copyright lessons in the future, other lessons. I would most likely think there would be more copyright lessons to follow up after this, but this would give a good baseline for that. And that is all the steps for the Assure model that I would use in my copyright lesson. Thank you.